Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of My 2 Cents. I'm your host, and the monologue of today's podcast is going to be just ranting about something random, as I usually do. And I wanted to start off just commenting on something I just watched, actually. Um, I don't know if you guys know Conan O'Brien, but I'm a huge fan. I think he's great. He wrote Simpsons episodes. I like his talk show, and I think as a host of a talk show, he's probably one of the best the United States has. It is my favorite, but I've never seen all of them. But yeah, and I was just checking the list of shows that he's had. He has a late night show that apparently had different names. So, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien, and just Conan, apparently from 2010 up to 2021. And like I said, I'm a huge fan. I really like his things, and I've seen several of his clips on YouTube, because for a Brazilian, that's an easy access that I personally have with his stuff. It's on YouTube. So, yeah, he's very entertaining, and I think he respects his guests' time. He actually can follow up on any guest. The guy is incredibly smart. I don't remember his resume, but I remember reading something about him being a very good honorary Harvard student. So the guy is pretty remarkable all around. And I was just watching this clip of he interviewing Louis C.K., which he's done several times. It's like you can go back and see young Louis, talking to young Conan, and you can see the most recent ones. And this one in particular was 4 years ago, so kind of recent, right? And I believe it was not among, but it was close to the American election. I'm not sure about the date because I didn't check properly, but it was close to the election because they were talking about the election, and Conan just asked Louis who Louis would vote for, and he said he's all for Hillary, and he makes some jokes of its reason. He makes some jokes about mothers and how Hillary is a mother, and he talks about how having over 200 years of fathers haven't done the country any good. Actually, he doesn't say that, but he implies it in a way that they are sick of having fathers. They should have a mother. And it's all fun and games. It's a nice interview. He's with Louis, especially regarding these types of things. I'm not the best at telling where his sarcasm begins and where it ends, but I think to a certain extent he was being truthful, even though if it was just to make the joke. But people in the comments certainly believed him, and it's scary to see both 4 years ago and also more recent comments of how people just, oh, I'm done with Louis now. I didn't think Louis C.K. was this pathetic, or I'm really disappointed with Louis' intelligence and yada yada yada. And I'm here thinking, really, dude, you think Trump was such a sure choice? That's how you judge someone who just think differently than you? I mean, how is that acceptable in your moral realm? How is that acceptable to you for you to hate a person that you apparently been a fan of for a while, and you just start hating them because of a single opinion they had? And how it resembles so much the situation that we have here in my country, here in Brazil, that here, I mean, for a lot of people, I've talked this in previous episodes, right? But here, for a lot of people, if you have a certain political agenda, not even agenda, come on, if you simply have a certain political opinion, people are already going to exclude you from their friend list. I've seen friends and even family members fighting amongst each other because of our current polarized situation, our current polarized political situation. And in the United States, it has always been polarized because they have the Democrats and the Republicans and different candidates for each of the two parties. And every single time, it was very polarized, but never as much as it was with Trump and Hillary. I remember reading a few articles about it a few years ago, especially during the American election 2016. But over the past few years, other articles were written about this topic. And to me, it's interesting to think about that, because here in Brazil, it's similar in a way that we've never been so divided. Like we had a political leader, I think he earned this title, called Lula. Even if you don't like Lula, you need to agree that he was, and in some ways he still is, a political leader. And he moved the country. Like he stayed for 2 terms, and then his successor stayed for 2 terms and got impeached in the second term because she lost a lot of popular support, and they found the stupidest reason in the world to let her go. And then in the 2018 Brazilian presidential election, we had a whole scheme to take Lula off power, to take Lula off his post because he would be able to run for president again, as I understand, as I recall, and people didn't want him to run again. They were, it's fair to say, and it's safe to say that they were scared, because he was an actual threat. He still had a huge pool of voters ready to just go for him regardless of his propositions. And there's good and bad in that statement, I guess. But I mean, and the guy got the fame, got actually, I should say, he got infamous because apparently he took a lot of bribes, and it was kind of proven of a lot of wrongdoings during his terms and during his time in the political Labour's Party. In the Labour's Party, which you call PT or PT in English. It's in Portuguese we say Partido dos Trabalhadores, but you can say Labour Party in English. It's just a direct translation. And he got, like, how can I say, he was unable to run for office before his trial had even finished, if that makes any sense for whoever is listening. And there's a lot of wrongdoings in this trial, a lot of conflict of interests that nowadays are coming to light more and more. And Lula, even though he might have been guilty of all the crimes or none of them, he certainly did a lot of wrongdoings, because here in Brazil, and I guess in a lot of places out there, and in a lot of other countries out there, corruption is just something that happens. Corruption in politics and lobbying just work together. A lot of big companies get together and invest their money in their candidates, and in all candidates really, and then whoever wins have their hands tied. And don't kid yourself thinking, I heard Bill Burr talking about Trump like this once, like, oh, nobody's gonna put their money in the cycle. Yeah, man, they will. They will put their money in the cycle, or like they're going to invest in every single person. If the person is running for office, especially if they get close to the final stages of the election, they are getting money, man. Trust me. And obviously that's how it happens. And I think it's so naive. It's so naive to just think it happens for one side. It's very naive to think one side is completely correct and the other is not. You know, and there is a discussion here in Brazil that I guess was going on in the United States as well, that both Bolsonaro and Trump are like Nazis, that they don't care about anybody but their own country. Actually, you can say that about Trump. I don't think you can say that about Bolsonaro, because I honestly think Bolsonaro don't care that much. I think Bolsonaro doesn't care that much about Brazil as much as Trump seemed to care about the United States. At least for a Brazilian, he seemed to care about the United States. But there's a lot of racism involved. There's a lot of misogyny involved, and it's crazy. I heard Frank Boyle. You guys always hear me quoting comedians, but they usually talk about recent events in a funny way. That's why I like it. But I was listening to Frank Boyle saying that you can get fired from a pretty regular job, you know, for being misogynist or racist in any way. You can get fired, and yet the guy got to be president of the United States for 4 years. And we have our own misogynist and racist here in Brazil too, and he's still in office. And of course, he presents several other problems too. And this is the thing, people don't seem to notice. Like there is a YouTuber that I really like called Sargon Avocad, and he is a liberal who stands for Trump 100%, even though he's British. And he stands for, as he claims it, he stands for freedom of speech, above anything else. And how can you disagree with that, right? How can you disagree with freedom of speech? But I just think, to me, the naivety behind these statements, that freedom of speech and like something I've heard him say, and mind you that I like this guy, alright? I don't agree with him, so I want to make this clear. I disagree. He's going by his own name nowadays. As I'm speaking, I'm gonna check here because I think it's only fair. Oh, it would be so cool if you were to listen to my video, to my podcast one day. I'm a fan of this guy, regardless of disagreeing nowadays with almost everything he says, because I think he likes to take a stand, and I think there is nobility in that. He gets out of his way to make a stand, but I just think he does that. I think it's arrogant of me to say that he does it with as being naive, with naivety. But I don't know. I just think when you go too much to one side, you're bound to make just naive mistakes. I don't know. Maybe you guys disagree, but in any case, he speaks, forward. He makes his statements very clear of how against he is of the left, at least the current left. I think I was following up on his videos, throughout the last 5 years or so, and he's against the current left. But I don't think. Actually, I think he knows. I just think he ignores that whenever he's giving a statement or whenever he's giving his opinion. He ignores that it's just a portion of the left, just like just a portion of the right is Nazi. I think it's safe to say that's a good portion, not a good portion, meaning that more than half, but um, a very scary percentage of conservatives. Um, are very affiliated with racism and Nazi thoughts. There's like Steve Chowder, which is another guy that I like and I don't agree with. I mean, I can't never in my right mind say that these two guys are stupid, because they are not. How can I say they are stupid when I've listened to them for so long? and I actually respect their opinion a lot. I just think they are wrong on things they think they are right, you know. And okay, the name of Sargon of Akkad is Carl Benjamin. Carl Benjamin. Hopefully, I didn't screw up his name. With the hopes of one day he listens to this podcast. But yeah, I mean, they are completely in favor of the right. I saw that Steve Chowder likes to just be a contrarian. You know, he likes to provoke. Crowder. Sorry, I keep saying Chowder. Steven Crowder. My bad. And they keep trying to be a contrarian, and to me it's very entertaining. I mean, I always think we should have discussions between both sides, and Steven Crowder does just that. He always tries to have discussions talking about gender ideology, and talking about racism, and talking about feminism, and standing by the side of the conservative party, standing by the side of the Republicans, but he always gives room to the other person to speak. So there's a lot of respect in that. And even though I think Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, he can be very ruthless sometimes in his statements. I still think there's a lot of thought in that behind all of them, and I just cannot stop listening to these guys, even though I don't agree with them. I think they are great. And if you are affiliated with the left, or if you like the left, if you consider yourself a progressive person, you should listen to these guys, just so you have a difference of opinion, or just so you hear a little bit from the other side, from nice, and I think it's safe to say trustworthy sources. But back to the clip, of Louis C.K. talking to Conan O'Brien. They were talking about politics, and then Louis just states and declares that he's all for Hillary, and people in the comments are going crazy, just canceling Louis altogether. Not over the internet, but for themselves. Like, Louis is dead for some of them, or I must say a lot of them. The like and dislike ratio in that video is like 60 to 40%, which is a lot of dislikes, especially considering a video from the Conan show. And I don't know, man. I always think it's strange. I mean, I think we should stand for something. I stand, for something. I have my political opinion, but the fact that I don't exclude people from my life, and the fact that I hear people from both sides, I think confuse some of my friends into thinking that I have no political stand, and to think that I stand for nothing. I heard Carl Benjamin saying that about oh man, I forgot. I'm gonna check that in a second, so I can actually say that. But in an interview, he was asked what he thinks about. Give me a second. Okay, what he thinks about Piers Morgan, and then he says that Piers Morgan is perfect for TV because he doesn't stand for anything. He likes to update on everything, and he stands for nothing basically. And apparently, according to Carl Benjamin at least, that's why he's on Good Morning Britain, since 2014 anyway. And I think I mean, I don't know Piers Morgan. I cannot say that I either agree or disagree with what Carl Benjamin said about him, but to say that a person stands for nothing just because they talk about different points of view, I think it's a little extreme, you know, because again, I stand for just the one thing, and I am open to change my opinion, depending on how the events play out, depending on how people, how can I say, really depending on how the events play out. It doesn't. It never depends on just the one person. I don't have one political figure that represents me. But I have things that goes together with my values, things that go together, sorry, with my values. And whenever I am whether or not I'm going to agree with a politician or with a journalist or with an influencer or whatever the person is, a friend, a family member, whether or not I agree with them or not, whether or not I agree with them is totally based on how much sense that makes to me, to be honest, you know. And if it makes sense, even if I didn't previously agree with that, I can change my mind. Hmm. In fact, Steven Crowder, the conservative that I was talking about earlier, he has this show on YouTube that even became a meme, Change My Mind. So Steven Crowder goes to, he sets himself on the street, and then he simply waits for people to come to him, you know what I mean? And he has a discussion, and that is just too great. I mean, he has his opinion, which is on the conservative side. He doesn't agree with gender ideology. He doesn't think that North America, nowadays, he doesn't agree that North America nowadays is racist. He thinks that has racist incidents and there has racist people, but he doesn't think that is a racist country. And it goes against the narrative from the left. So that's why I disagree with him. I think this way, I think more on the progressive side. But I mean, he has good arguments, I must say. And he tries to have conversations with people that have a complete difference of opinion to his. And how can you not see value in that? I mean, come on. How can you see one of your favorite or probably your favorite comedian on most likely or most favorable or just the talk show that you like the most, you know? And just because you don't agree with what your favorite comedian said, all of a sudden he's crap to you. He's worthless. Oh, I cannot believe that Louis C.K. stands with Hillary. He's an idiot. How can he be so stupid? How can he be so pathetic? Oh, Louis is over. Or even worse, Louis is a sellout. Like the guy cannot have his opinion that is different than what you expected that he would have, that automatically makes him a sellout. I mean, I don't know if he is or not, but it's a very thin argument to say that he's a sellout just because it doesn't goes together with your expectations. So it's just a tiring subject to keep repeating. And if you are one of the only people who listens to this podcast and you've heard me talking about this before, I guess you noticed today I'm doing a lot of because I have to really think about what I'm going to say. To me, this is fun. It's a good training because in Portuguese I would be able to talk about this with ease, but whenever I'm doing this in English, I'm like, alright, how can I associate this line of thought, or how can I associate this situation with Americans or with English in general? And in case of Carl Benjamin, with British people. But I don't know much about Britain. I don't know much about the United Kingdom at all. Um, not saying that I know a lot about the United States, but usually what I get comes from people that are American. And I don't know. Maybe you guys can tell me what you think. The two people listening to this, you can tell me what you think, where you stand politically. You can tell me how all of this sounds to you, you know, because I mean, I get it, right? You have something, uh, you have a person that says something that doesn't go along with your beliefs, and naturally, right? You're not going to agree with them. Because let's say you are a progressive person, you're not going to agree with a conservative. And the same thing goes the other way around. If you are a conservative, you're not going to agree with a progressive person, at least not on everything. You might agree on some things, but certainly not going to agree in everything. And I think that's the beauty that I see in it. A lot of people see that as a huge problem, right? I don't know, man. Um, so, I was just checking Reddit today, this morning as well, which, by the way, I was going to give a class and my student cancelled. It was my first class of the day, that's why I'm recording this podcast today in the middle of the week. And I guess I had some things I wanted to talk about with myself, and I said, why not just, um, why not simply just record a podcast instead of talking by myself. And naturally, I was checking the subreddit of politics, which has 7.5 million members. I usually talk about the subreddit called Relationship Advice, but today, just to vary a little bit more, I'm going to talk about r/politics. So I see something that has over 30,000 upvotes called Listini saying that Trump is a threat and America has never seen before. And this comes together perfectly with what we were talking about, because the top comment here, which already has some awards, even though it was made only 10 hours ago, is saying the following. Interesting that she's calling out here that Trump's trying to be a threat right now, not a past problem or something that could happen in 2024. I haven't seen anyone else do that. I think Democrats know this, but have mostly erred on the side of not amplifying him to reduce that threat. Um, I think it's interesting to see people just not going completely ballistic over a statement like that and actually agreeing. Most likely people more on the progressive side. I think people like Steve Crowder or Carl Benjamin would disagree completely. And it's interesting because to me, how I still wonder how can these very well educated guys like Steve Crowder and Carl Benjamin, they are very highly educated. How can they stand so? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe they don't, but it seems to me that they stand blindly with Trump. You know what I mean? It really seems to me that's what happens, and I really don't get it. It's like academicians here in Brazil standing blindly with Bolsonaro or standing blindly with Lula. And I get it, man. You want to have your stand, you want to have your position, you want to have your political opinion. But standing blindly with a political figure doesn't make any sense to me. It makes a lot more sense for you to stand for values and opinions and conclusions and then searching for those in a certain political party or a certain political figure. But a political figure is bound for mistakes and flaws because they are human. And you should at least admit that they are not perfect. And even though most people would right away agree with that, yeah, I don't think Bolsonaro is perfect if the person agrees with Bolsonaro, or I don't think Lula is perfect if they agree with Lula. We're talking about the United States. I don't think Hillary is perfect, or Trump's perfect, or Biden's perfect, or Bernie Sanders is perfect. Whoever you stand with, you probably don't think that this political figure is perfect. You just think this political figure goes together with your values more than anyone else. And I understand that. I understand that. But to get out of your way to defend these people is something that I do not understand. To get out of your way to defend their flaws, sometimes to defend their crimes, saying that they are not crimes, to me that's preposterous, man. It doesn't make any sense. I really, my brain is not developed enough to understand why a well-educated person, or any person really, would get out of their way to defend the flaws and crimes of another human being. That is not your family member, that is not your spouse, that is not your partner. I mean, he's a politician. He doesn't give a fuck about you, man. He doesn't care whether you live or die. He literally does not care. He barely knows about your existence. To him, you're just another number. It doesn't matter if it's on the progressive side or on the conservative side. It doesn't matter if it's Lula or Bolsonaro. It doesn't matter if it's the Republicans or the Democrats. And listen, I understand that Brazilian politics is completely different from North American politics than the politics that they have in the United States. But the polarized part of it is quite similar. That's why I'm making these comparisons, alright? And I just don't get it. To me, it makes a lot more sense to just criticize what you see that is wrong and try to come up with solutions just for the sake of argument. You know what I mean? Just for the sake of argument. I mean, for example, yeah, I don't agree with Bolsonaro, right? I don't. But for me to say that his government is all bad is naive, because I've talked about this before. He has Tarcísio Gomes, and Tarcísio Gomes is a very important piece for today's Brazil, because he's connecting roads, especially in the north region of Brazil, but he also has plans for the Santos Bay area, which is where I live. He has planned for the docks. So the guy is doing a lot of work, and you cannot disagree with that, you know. And I think it's naive to think a government is not doing anything good just because they're not doing what you want. So if you are a progressive person, and then all of a sudden there is a conservative party in power for that particular term, please don't automatically just disagree with everything they do, because obviously they're going to look at things from a conservative standpoint. You know, I'm not saying this is the case with Bolsonaro, right? I think a lot of things that he does are destructive and are harmful, just like Trump was doing destructive and harmful things over in the United States. But it doesn't mean it's all bad. And I heard Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, saying the other day that, please, sorry, excuse me if I'm quoting him wrong, but I believe he says that this is why the left is evil, because they are trying to make their morals institutionalized and their morals to dictate ours. And that's why he stands for freedom of speech, and that's why he's so against the left, the current left. From what I gather, is that he thinks the left is trying to take away our individuality, is trying to take away our freedom of speech, is trying to take away even our rights to have our own morals. They want to institutionalize their own morals. And there is a lot of truth to that statement. However, don't kid yourself, because the Conservative Party does exactly the same. Exactly the same. I mean, I cannot speak too much about the United States here, but in Brazil, I mean, we have religious values trying to be institutionalized since Bolsonaro got into power. Since before he got into power, that was already being done by conservative parties and political parties on Congress, just trying to do their morals to be the holy truth. I mean, politics and morals go together, man. If you ask yourself, how can that person, which was the question I was asking myself just a few minutes ago, how can that person stand for that political figure for so long and defend him or her after all this crap that they've done? It's because there is this moral entanglement. They see themselves and their political figure, and they see themselves in their political figure. They see themselves represented by that. And then all of a sudden is not another person anymore. It's you. It's your values that are there on the stand. It's your values that are there being represented. So if you commit a crime, of course you're going to defend yourself, right? Because you need to defend yourself. It's a matter of survival. It's a matter of pride. And I think this is the main thing that I can take from this podcast is that all these political alignments, all these political stands and statements, they all come down to emotions, man. I mean, it's rational up until a certain degree. It stops being rational when you're just defending another guy that doesn't give a fuck about you, you know? It stops being rational right then and there. And when you take I stand that just go against the opposite side, regardless of discussion regardless of arguments, regardless of any type of dialogue. It also becomes irrational, because how can you grow intellectually? How can you know for sure that you're right or wrong if you don't talk about someone that disagrees with you, man? How can you challenge yourself? How can you challenge your beliefs? How can you really put yourself and your beliefs into perspective if all you do is just listen to people that agrees with you? And here I'm extending last podcast's topics, right? It's a topic that I like a lot. I wrote, I guess, 3 or 4 articles about that on Medium. Don't think that I'm a accomplished writer. I'm not. I just write random stuff, and post on free platforms such as Medium. And ugh, it's crazy, man. So I mean, if you didn't hear about Liz Cheney and Liz Cheney talking about Trump, I think that you probably should. It's at the very least, it's interesting, especially if you wanna learn more about how American politics are going right now. I'm just gonna read another comment on that, which is saying the following. It's like an answer to the first comment, and I'm gonna read the first comment again just for the sake of argument. So the guy says, interesting that she's calling out here that Trump is trying to be a threat right now, not a past problem or something that could happen in 2024. I haven't seen anyone else do that. I think Democrats know this, but have mostly erred on the side of not amplifying him to reduce the threat. And one of its responses is like the Democratic Party is mishandling this situation. And it's interesting because again we can see parallels with Brazil's situation. Yes, the Biden administration is taking a good tack of not dignifying or legitimizing him by mention, but there should be a different non-administration wing of the party that doesn't let up on keeping alive the facts and the truth of his criminality and treasonous efforts. Having all flanks of the party take the administration's high road approach has allowed Republicans a foothold in their revisionist attempts. They need to be countered loudly and constantly. Yeah, so here uh, the guy is talking about how there is no fight. The left just keep their heads down, and they're like, we're not gonna talk about the criminal, we're just gonna let the criminal die off. But guess what? They won't die off, man. They will get stronger regardless of your silence. And I see this happening here in Brazil. We have only portions of the left fighting, and even nowadays there a lot of them are verbose and open are verbal sorry and open about it. um, I don't see any real action taking place. I mean, I see some people doing like how can I say, man, small gatherings, sometimes big gatherings, but it's very hard to take those gatherings serious. It's very hard to take them seriously because whenever you see them at these big walks and gatherings and sometimes small riots, it's about them. It's not about being against the current government. It's about them, and they make everything about them, and it's very difficult to take them seriously. Whenever I'm seeing, oh, I'm against Bolsonaro, let's meet up, let's do a big gathering, and then everybody does that, and all of a sudden it becomes just a place that they can talk about their own political party, their own political proposals, and they are talking about the next election. So I'm like, yeah, that's convenient. So of course, like, and then to me, it seems like they're not disagreeing with the guy because the guy is doing something wrong. They're just disagreeing with the guy because it's not them in power. So that's why it's very difficult to me to stand completely with one political party or one political figure because of this crap, man. To me, that doesn't make any sense. That actually, if it makes perfect sense, it just doesn't make any sense for me to take them seriously. I understand why they are doing it, all right. I just, it takes away the credit, it takes away its seriousness. I cannot take them serious. That's just not something I can do. And I think I talked enough about politics. Fuck this. Next time, next podcast, I'm gonna go back, just kicking back and reading some relationship advice on Reddit and talking about those and going back to my uh, poor man's psychology because this is a lot of fun to me. So anyway, this is me talking about polarized politics once again. This is me talking about making comparisons really between the United States and Brazil once again. And don't take me too seriously, man or woman. Those are just my 2 cents.